Hello, Carrie Burchill here. Welcome to another episode of Shine Like a North Star. I am the proud owner of North Star Coaching, and our work really helps leaders develop their soft skills. So that can be everything from team building to roundtable discussions to helping people communicate better and really say what they're thinking so that we actually get work done and move forward without delays and have more innovation and better problem solving, all the great things that come together when we actually talk to each other. So one of the challenges that I've been hearing lately from my clients is this idea that they keep getting pulled into everything, which just creates like more overwhelm, more stress, less productivity because you're stressed and kind of like spinning in place. So we're going to talk through some tips to avoid being that go-to person that everyone kind of wants to dump their stuff on. Let me start by describing the urban myth of the frog to help contextualize the work. So the frog is the person who is kind of in this pot of water, and they're in a cold pot of water frolicking around, and someone walks by and turns on the element. So that cold pot of water is, you guessed it, slowly getting warmer, and over time the water starts to boil. Does the frog even notice that the water is gradually getting warmer? It's happening so slowly they don't even really notice it until, oh my goodness, they're in a pot of boiling water, and rocket science, the frog dies, right? So nobody wants to be the frog. Today is really about helping you not be that frog. The urban legend also says that if you get plopped in to a pot of boiling water as a frog, that you're gonna jump back out. So there is a way to create that awareness where you might be walking into a scenario or a situation where it's like, whew, that is bad. I want to get out of this. I want to get out of that pot of hot water. And there's also some strategies that you can implement to just assess whether or not somebody's turning on their water slowly and you're not even aware of it until you slow down in meetings like today to shine like a North Star. So the first strategy is to really slow the conversation down. So when we think about somebody approaching you and says like, hey, you're so great at ABC, we'd love you to be on this subcommittee doing this work that's going to impact the strategic planning of our company. Well, of course, it's flattering, right? It's nice to be acknowledged for your skills, and you might have an inclination to go, oh, that's work that I value, it aligns with kind of my purpose, my role. Sure, I can do it. You just put yourself in a pot of hot water that someone might be turning the heat on. So really, the idea is just slow down the conversation, and that happens through a couple of simple questions that could apply to a situation you want to be a part of or a situation you want to get out of. So the first thing is to really ask, what is the scope of the work? So wow, the subcommittee, that sounds really exciting. What's the committee's purpose, right? How large, what does that look like? Tell me a little more. So instantly, before you're reacting whether or not you want to be involved, volunteer, join the subcommittee, you're asking some questions to slow the conversation down, which buys you time as a thinker to think through whether or not this is something that fits you and something that you have capacity for. Okay, so the first thing is to ask about the scope of the work. People often have a definition of the scope, but they don't really have a clear vision, right? So I could say, well, the subcommittee is going to look about retention and what we can do to keep our employees here longer. Okay, so does that include looking at employee onboarding? Is the work supposed to increase retention by 30%? Are we doing exit interviews? Are we doing stay interviews? What's the vision behind the scope? So again, you're just slowing people down to get an idea of what's really involved in this committee work. Because you may still want to be a part of it, but not the frog in the boiling water, right? The third thing is really thinking through, thank you for inviting me to be a part of the subcommittee. That scope sounds really, really interesting and also broad. I can see how the vision is going to affect some of the change that you want. Gosh, in all of those moving pieces, how do you see my role playing out? Right? Because if you're a frog, the likelihood of you kind of stepping up and doing work more often is probably pretty prevalent. You know, you're somebody who volunteers, cares, gets committed, all of those great things. You might inadvertently be putting yourself in the frog cycle, which is just going to create burnout and overwhelm, and you're not really going to fulfill the vision because it's just way too much work plus all of your other responsibilities. So today's Shine Like a North Star is really imploring you as leaders to manage the conversation. It's fun, this morning I was just catching up with a colleague of a company that I used to serve, and he had a really insightful comment, which was the best leaders that he's worked for are not the people that are following like the greatest next book, the last trend, the innovative idea. They're leaders that do a couple of really simple leadership things well. They're not the frogs that learn how to navigate hot pots of hot water. They're leaders that, you know, communicate well or connect well or slow down well or, you know, get at vision, scope, role really articulated so that everyone feels set up for success. Too often the clients that I'm coaching and working with in leadership development, they get asked to do things, and this is part of the spin that they sort of say, gosh, Carrie, help me, like I want to get out of this cycle. I'm burned out, I'm frustrated, I'm not feeling as successful as I want to be, and I'm not as confident consequently, right? So we talk through how they let themselves enter the frog cycle. You know, they're positioning themselves for that because they care so much, which is great, and ultimately not setting themselves up for success. So one of the great things you can do as a leader is manage the conversation. Slow it down. Ask questions around what the scope of the work is, what the vision is, and what your role is. And it could be something as little as employees coming to you complaining about the vending machines never working. Okay, so, you know, scope, what do you want me, what's my involvement in this, right? Vision, what do you want to have come out of the vending machine thing? Because they might actually be really upset, not just about the vending machine stuff, but they heard that the company makes money that it's not sharing back with the employees. Totally different thing. Like the vision might be different than what you're thinking, get the vending machine fixed. Maybe they're upset with the selection in the vending machine. Like, who knows? Let's slow down and say, what's my role in this? You know, how many vending machines are we talking about? What's the scope? What's the vision? What do you want out of the vending machine frustrations that you're experiencing? So these simple strategies of slowing the conversation down can relate to a retention subcommittee that you're involved in, or transactional things like the vending machines broken. So be that leader who leverages their emotional intelligence, slows the conversation down so that you're set up for success, the people that you're partnering with understand what your role and what you're willing to do and not willing to do. And it's all above board before things get sticky and messy and, you know, we're crossing wires and the communication isn't as tight as we want it to be. I would love to hear about other questions that you use to slow the conversation down. Let's be in touch. Love to hear about your work and just connect. I find there's such value in leaders coming together to just talk about their work and connect and make sense of how we're navigating this space as we come out of COVID or adjust to whatever COVID's doing. I'm Carrie Burchill. Have a wonderful day.